from the question. And then you can also read the question from participant and directly answer the question in Zoom chat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into the content. For the first, I invite Miss Sri Wahyuningsih. Are you the first?
Yes.
Okay. This time, this time. Please share. Okay. You have 10 minutes.
Yes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Thanks to the moderator for their time. I'm Swayuni Ningsi. I'm from Master Epidemiology in Diponegoro University, and I will present the title is Risk Factor for COVID-19 Transmission in Workplace of the Semarang City with a Qualitative Study at the International Conference Energy, Environment, Epidemiology, and Information System at 2021. COVID-19 is a new disease that first appeared in Wuhan in 2018 and spread to various countries in the world. In Indonesia, from the first case report on March 2nd, 2019 to May 8, 2021, there were at least 1,709,762 cases with a death rate of 2.73%. Semarang City is one of the 4 cities with the highest COVID-19 case in Central Java province. There are many clusters of COVID-19 transmission, including in the workplace of Semarang City. The result of the epidemiological investigation report by contact tracer COVID-19 in Semarang City, there were 55 COVID-19 clusters found at the workplace. The workplace as a locus of interaction and the gathering of people is a risk factor for transmission that needs to be controlled. Previous research that has been conducted in one of the workplace, 5 malls in Yogyakarta City on May until August 2020, state that the risk factor for the occurrence of COVID-19 are some behavior of mass use, physical distancing outside the house at the workplace. There is still no research on the risk factor for COVID-19 transmission in the workplace in Semarang City, so further research is needed. And the purpose is analyzed to identify the risk factor for COVID-19 transmission in the workplace in Semarang City. This study was a descriptive study with a qualitative approach. Data from of the COVID-19 epidemiological investigation at the workplace of Semarang City for the period January until March 2021 were used. The selection of workplace and informant using the purposive sampling method, and research also performed a triangulation for epidemiological investigator to confirm that the report they received. And the result and discussion. Based on the report, there are 55 clusters found the workplace, such as a cluster in education, 31 cluster in private companies, 12 in public service, 2 cluster in health facilities, 1 cluster in NGO, and 1 cluster in foundation. And the total confirmation case is 285 and 1,093 close contact. The risk factor for COVID-19 transmission in the work, such as number 1, contact with a confirmed COVID-19 person. Based on report, there are of 54 workplace cluster have risk factor for contact with people with confirmed COVID-19. The majority of employees who have been confirmed with COVID-19 are in close contact with previously confirmed COVID-19 people, such as communicating at a distance of less than 1 meter. These communicate activities occur when work activities take place, such as discussion, submitting reports, and also personal sharing between employees during break time. Contact with people with confirmed COVID-19 at work is the most common risk factor. COVID-19 transmission in Semarang City workplace occurred due to direct contact, shaking hands, touch, or droplets that are spread when suffer cold, sneeze, talk with a distance between individuals of less than 1 meter. Contact can also occur due to work tasks that require intense interaction with coworkers. This support by Result Health Organization 2021, which show that physical contact at work is associated with a high incidence rate of COVID-19. Number 2 is close distance of less than 1 meter. Based on report, there are 50 workplaces have not properly implement health protocol rules, 90.9%. This is because the distance of between employees' desks and chairs of less than 1 meter. Additionally, setting of the desks and chairs of the employees is facing each other. It increases the risk of COVID-19 transmission between employees. Other study also show that of less than 1 meter distance is associated with the incidence of COVID at work. And World Health Organization also provide recommendation for preventing COVID-19 in the workplace, namely providing a minimum distance of 1 meter between one workplace and another and common space, such as entrance and exit, elevator, kitchen, or canteens. The risk factor number 3 is official travel history. Based on the report, it's known that several COVID clusters at work are found after the employee come back from their business trips. The fields of work that carry out a lot of official travel are the marketing and distribution of food. Work-related exposure can occur at any time in the workplace, on business trip, to place where community transmission occur, as well as soon on the road when leaving and returning from work. The workplace also confirmed that all workers who are traveling on business have been briefed by professionals on COVID-19 prevention measures to reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission. Number 4, eating together with people confirmed COVID-19. Based on report that a total of 16 COVID-19 clusters in the workplace occur after eating together. And eating together among workers is still mostly done in the workplace, such as in the canteen or outside eating place during recess or coming home from work. When eating, many workers don't keep their distance because they sit close together and don't use masks for a long time. Workplace with physical contact, inadequate ventilation, use of shared work tools, going on business trips, and eating together are reported to have a high incidence of COVID-19. Number 5, using sharing work tools. Based on report, a total of 6 COVID-19 clusters at workplace have been identified because they use collective work tools, tools that are shared in the office such as computer, printer, mice, and several other work tools. According to World Health Organization, COVID-19 transmission can be through materials or objects that may be contaminated by the COVID-19 virus. This includes work equipment around people infected with COVID-19. And the recommendation, preventive efforts are needed, such as washing hands, and after using work tools and reducing the use of work tools together. The risk factor after not using the appropriate mask, a total of 15 workplaces that are part of the COVID-19 cluster occur because some employees don't use masks while working. The reason for workers not using masks include difficult breathing, difficult communicating, and others. COVID-19 is transmitted through droplets, so if workers don't use masks, the risk of COVID-19 transmission can occur. This is supported by the result of research conducted by Dewi, which show that there is a significant relationship between the use mask between the COVID-19 incident and the recommendation the public to wear mask when going out, working, and in public place. The last risk factor is poor air circulation. Based on report, There are 16 workplaces have poor air circulation. The majority of workplaces are fully air conditioned, don't have windows, and space is narrow. This condition result in the air exchange not running fluently. Inappropriate working conditions such as poor air circulation, there is a risk of direct field transmission of COVID-19. The presence of droplet in a closed circulation room with poor ventilation make aerosol containing virus trapped in the room. And the recommendation prevention that we carry out is by adjusting the temperature of the room air conditioner, regulate ventilation, and opening the room door or window with periodically so that the air exchange in the room can run again. Based on the result above, it can be concluded that there are several risk factors for COVID-19 transmission in Semarang City workplace, including contact with people with confirmed COVID-19, a distance of less than 1 meter, not using the appropriate mask, using sharing work tools, eating together, official travel history, and poor air circulation. And the recommendation, the stakeholder and workplace owner can formulate policies for implementing health protocol in the workplace by increasing the promotion of COVID-19 prevention and increasing health protocol compliance inspection for employees so that it can reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission and the occurrence of the COVID-19 cluster in the workplace. Thank you very much attention. If any question, welcome to us.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Sri Wahyuni. This is nice presentation about risk factor of COVID-19 in Semarang City. Okay, please stay in here, stand up, and then you can read and answer the question for you in room chat. And then furthermore is the presentation paper to be presented by Ratno Dwi Nyamiati. Are you present? Ratno Dwi Nyamiati or Muhammad Edi Yulianto? Hello?
Miss Ratno, your voice is not here. We cannot hear you.
Hello, Miss Ratno. Are you ready?
I think there's problem in Miss Ratno's speaker.
Okay, next presenter. Miss Brenda Venita Lantu.
Okay. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will share screen. Can you already see my screen, my slide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. For honorable reviewers, let me introduce myself first. My name is Brenda Venita Lantu. I am from Shipbuilding Institute of Polytechnic in Surabaya, and also a part of Safety and Health Engineering. And today I would like to present this research about the work-related musculoskeletal disorders, symptoms on the workers exposed to hand arm vibrations of an impact wrench and a demolition hammer operator. Before I start my presentations, I would like to show you the contents of these presentations as well. The first one is I want to talk about the background and the objectives of this study. And the second one is about the methodology and the results and a brief of conclusions. And I will start it with the background and the objectives of this study. As you can see now, in industrial of concrete manufacture, there are several products. One of them called spoon pile. The spoon pile product was produced in the rotary workshop, which also divided by some stage area, such as setting area, and stressing, and also the molding area, which use impact wrench as a tools to fastening or loosening sockets, and also they use mechanical tools called demolition hammer to cleaning the mold. And the usage of these mechanical tools produce a vibrations exposures to the workers. And some researchers say that the exposures of hand-arm vibration is associated with a risk of body injury in the form of musculoskeletal disorders. As you can see now, the musculoskeletal disorders is an occupational risk factors that affect the musculoskeletal systems, such as muscle, tendons, ligaments, nerves, and etc. And the common of musculoskeletal disorders are tendonitis, carpal tunnel syndrome, tension neck syndrome, hand-arm vibration syndrome, and kind of that. And also in here, I present the graphic of Britain, the statistic of Britain in 2020. In 2020, report that the construction seems to be the industry with higher rates of workers who had musculoskeletal disorders. At the other side, international labor organizations in 2020 state that 2.78 million workers die from the work-related disease. And from this data, we can say that the musculoskeletal disorders is an epidemic in the workplace. So this should be highlighted, the need for a new paradigm of preventions which focus on work-related disease through the research and also the observations as well. And the previous study also have discussed about the relationship between musculoskeletal disorders and to the multiple risk factors such as the biodynamic postures, length of work period, also age and gender, and also about the vibrations in some workplace. And they usually use Nordic body map questionnaires, but in this case of study, we used the standardized Nordic questionnaires that were made by Quebonjo in 1998. The standardized Nordic questionnaires by Quebonjo in 1998 was developed to create a simple standardized questionnaire that could be used for a screening, particularly in the objectives of workers who exposed to hand-arm vibrations exposures. So now I would like to tell you the objectives of this study as well. The first one is to identify work-related musculoskeletal disorders complaints using standard Nordic questionnaires, or I called it SNQ, on the impact wrench and demolition hammer operator. And also I would like to examine the relationship between WMSDs and to multiple risk factors such as age, length of work period, and also hand-arm vibrations. And next, I would like to explain the methodology from this study. We use analytical observations approach as a study design, and the subjects of this study were 27 male of impact wrench and demolition hammer operators in a spoon pile divisions of concrete manufacture. And as you can see here, this figure is about the characteristic of respondent in the concrete manufacture area. And the data of hand-arm vibrations exposure were collected with direct assessment using human vibration meter 100 type of tools. And besides that, the statistic analyses were carried out with SPSS25 to determine the relationship using chi-square and also the Fisher's-Isaacs test. And now I would like to show you the results from the study. As we can see here now, about this graphic, the distribution of frequency of work-related musculoskeletal disorders complaints. But musculoskeletal disorders complaints in a workplace of a concrete manufacturer showed as this figure. And from this, we know that the highest complaints that were felt by workers is hand or wrist troubles. It's about 59.26% from all workers. And from this data, it can be seen that more than 50% of impact wrench and demolition hammer workers feel these complaints. And this indicates that the possibility of these complaints arises due to exposures to hand and arm vibrations from impact wrench and demolition hammer used while working. And now, And now, as we can see here about the graphic, the analysis of hand-arm vibrations exposures based on the Ministry of Manpower Regulations number 5 in 2018 show that in this case of study area, we see that the workers of the mechanical tools who receive the exposures of hand-arm vibrations exposures above the standard of or above the exposures limit value, ELV, is about 59.26%. And based on the previous research, it is known that complaints of WMSDs can cause the disruptions of human nervous tissue due to the transmissions of vibrations energy in the hands and arms, which increases when approaching to the vibration source. According to research, it is also known that the risk of WMSDs complaints will increase with the increasing of age. And after we analyze the exposures, the hand-arm vibrations exposures, we also use statistical tests to examine the relationship between them. And from these results, we know that there is a significant relationship between WMSDs in the form of hand-arm vibrations exposures and hand-arm vibration syndrome. And besides, the hand-arm wrist troubles and the low back troubles has also a significant value with the age. And a brief of conclusions is that we can conclude that the modified standardized Nordic questionnaire enables us to identify the disability caused by work-related musculoskeletal disorders. And from this research, we know that hand wrist troubles has the higher rates to the musculoskeletal disorders. It's about 59.26%. And the second one is based on the relationship statistical test. We know that hand-arm vibrations exposures and hand-arm vibration syndrome has a significant relationship showed by the p-value of equal to 0.022. And it shows that the hand-arm vibrations factors could involve the symptoms of WMSDs as a hand-arm vibration syndrome. At the other side, hand or wrist troubles and low back troubles also has a significant relation with the age factor. And we can conclude that hand-arm vibrations exposures from the mechanical tools can surely affect the musculoskeletal systems in the form of hand-arm vibration syndrome. And by the time the workers will suffering from this work-related disease. And it is necessary to have controls that can reduce the hand-arm vibrations exposures. And occupational hygiene measurements and the direct offer of medical examinations for all employees is essential to reducing health problems related to hand-arm vibrations exposures. And the suggestions for this study is to make anti-vibrations glove that can be the personal protective equipment or PPE to the workers who exposed to hand-arm vibrations exposures. Thank you for your attention. For further informations or suggestions about these studies, you can email me at this link below. And also, if you want to ask me, I'm gladly to answer it. You can drop your questions to the Zoom chat room. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Brenda. This is the amazing presentation. Okay, please stay tuned and answer the question in group chat. Next presenter, Miss Diah Kartikawani.
Yeah.
Okay, it's your turn.
Yeah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for your opportunity, Mrs. Dewi Sutiningsih. My name is Diah Kartikawening. I will present my research with my team, Sugeng Marianto and Purbawati, with the title, The Effect of Papaya Leaf Juice, Jelly, Carica Papayalin on the Level of SOD and MDA. Table of contents of my research. Number 1, introduction. Number 2, material and methods. Number 3, result and discussion. Number 4, conclusion. For the first, introduction, papaya leaf. Indonesia has various kinds of natural world, including the natural world of plant which include medical plants. Papaya is a local plant that is easily found in various regions of the world, including Indonesia. The use of medical plants has long been carried of the community and has been passed down from generation to generation as a traditional medicine. Papaya leaves are commonly consumed by people as vegetable and also as traditional medicine. The use of papaya leaves as herbal medicine is due to the content of the active substance chlorophyll, which is included in the antioxidant group. Papaya leaf jelly. This is a picture of papaya leaf jelly for my research. Antioxidants are effective strategy in reducing disease complication, especially from biological source, one of which is chlorophyll. The amount of chlorophyll content in plus minus 1% dry weight, very potential as a food supplement or functional food. Papaya leaf jelly has controlled laboratory tests, and the results show that 8.1 grams of papaya leaf jelly contains 7.4% in 60 milligrams of chlorophyll and 50.3% of antioxidant. Material and methods. Design of this study is experimental design with random pre-post design. Time in March 2019. Location in Universitas Ngudi Waluyo Ungaran, Kabupaten Semarang, and the subject, the study population was 20 students of Ngudi Waluyo University Ungaran, Central Java with healthy categories seen from weight, age, BMI, blood sugar level, and blood pressure. Measurement and data analysis. Jelly intervention was given as much 24.6 grams for 20 days. Control food intake using a food recall, 3 multiple 24 hours. Before and after intervention, SOD and MDA level are measured. Blood analysis using TPARS method for MDA at the Diponegoro University Laboratory. ELISA method for SOD at PAU Gajah Mada University Yogyakarta. Data analysis in this study use normality test and pair t-test. Result and discussion. Table 1 is characteristic respondent. Table 1 indicate age of respondent include into early adulthood are in the age of 19 till 35 years. BMI of all respondents was classified as normal. In average, BMI of 20.24 kilogram per meters. Blood sugar and blood pressure within normal limits respondent classified. Table 2, Effect of papaya leaf chlorophyll jelly on SOD. The result of the pair sample test in double tree, p-value is 0.001 was obtained. Statistical test result, p less than 0.05 indicate that there are different level of SOD score before after intervention jelly papaya leaf chlorophyll. Chlorophyll content in papaya leaf has a positive effect on the body because the bioactive compound chlorophyll is a chain-breaking antioxidant that works by donating its electron for free radical, especially at initiation before hydroperoxide is formed at the important structure of chlorophyll, which has antioxidant activity, is in the structure of porphyrin. Table 3, effect of papaya leaf chlorophyll on MDA level. Papaya leaf chlorophyll jelly given for 20 days was able to reduce malonyl-aldehyde or MDA with p-value less than 0.05. This study was able to prove previous research on experimental animals, which showed the chlorophyll was able to significantly reduce MDA level. The average level malonyl-aldehyde before treatment was 11.74 plus minus 0.87, and after administration of papaya leaf chlorophyll jelly decreased 10.82 plus minus 1.06. Till illustrate that the significant effect of giving chlorophyll jelly on subject with healthy people. Conclusion, provision of chlorophyll jelly is a high antioxidant from leaf papaya, amount to 24.6 gram for 20 days, provide effective reduction of the MDA and provide the effective increase SOD level in healthy people. Thank you. This is my contact. You can answer. You can contact me in email or my office. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. This is my nice presentation. Your presentation time is 10 minutes. You have 5 minutes for discussion. So please stay tuned and directly answer some question in room chat. And then next presenter, Puji Viatna. Puji
Yes, Bu.
Viatna.
Yes, Ibu Dwi.
Your time.
Okay. Thank you for the time. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. For the first, I want to introduce myself. My name is Puji Aviatna, and my team is Bapak Sugeng Marianto. We are from Nutrition Department Universitas Ngudi Waluyo, Ungaran. I want to present my study with a title Parents Feeding Style on the Adequacy of Energy and Protein in Children with Stunted Nutritional Status. And in this table of content, my presentation, number 1 is introduction, and then method, result and discussion, and conclusion. For the introduction, school children are included in a group that is vulnerable to the problem of malnutrition and manifested in the low quality of human resources. The height of new child entering school is an indicator of the presence of or absence of growth disorder in children. One of the malnutrition problem experienced by school children is stunting or short. Stunting related to quantity and quality of food intake and adequacy of energy and protein. And then parenting patterns consist of 2 elements. demandingness and responsiveness. Demandingness is parental demands, providing control, supervision, consistent direction, detailed expectation, and punishment. And then responsiveness are response of parents, warmth, acceptance, and involvement. All these related to parents play a major role in the success of shaping children's eating behavior. A good feeding style will affect children's nutrition intake, and poor feeding practice in our children will contribute to the incidence of stunting. Based on this background, we are interested to conducting a study on how is the correlation of feeding style with adequate levels of energy and protein in stunted children aged 6 until 9 years. For the methods, this study, our approach, use cross-sectional and at 32 elementary school in West Ungaran District, Semarang Regency, Central Java Province. On August until October 2018. And the sampling technique use consecutive sampling. For the instrument, we use the data feeding style is taken by caregiver's feeding style questionnaire for the two elements. Number one is element demandingness, consists of 17 statements, and for the two element responsiveness, consists of 5 statements. The scoring ranges from never with a score 1 point and until always with a score 5 points. Authoritative, if demand element score more than and equal to the median score, and the response element score are to less than and more than and equal the median score. Authoritarian demand element score more than and equal median score, and response element score less than median score. Permissive feeding style, if the demand element score is less than median score, and the response element score is more than and equal the median score. Neglect, demand element score less median score, and for response element score less median score. And then for measurement of the level of energy and protein adequacy, we use recall, and interviews were conducted on subject with parents. The level of nutrition adequacy of subjects is based on individual needs, which has been adjusted to the 2013 nutritional adequacy rate, AKG. Energy deficit if 89% AKG, adequate if 90 until 120%, and more if more than 120% AKG. Same on protein, deficit if less than and equal to 69%, 89% AKG, adequate if 90 until 120% AKG, and more if more than 120% AKG. The result of discussion, from the table, we can see that the most of research subject were age 6 until 7 years with an equal proportion of sex between men and women. Most of the subject had short moderate stunting, 92.3%. From this table, socioeconomic characteristic, we can see that the respondent mostly are mother. We can see that the subject whose overall stunting were mostly have mother and father age 30 until 49 years. 83.5% were for father, 73.6%. And we mostly have the number of dependent family members, 2 until 4 people, and more than 4 people are same. And then for socioeconomic in daily childcare, most of the subject care by mother, and only a small care by father, and subject who's care by other people, usually by grandmother, because both of parents are work as worker in formal sector or in factory. In a factory. And then for income level per capita, we can see it's in level of income per capita almost the same amount between social economic poor and no poor, but the number of the non-poor is more than poor. It's based from PPS 2018, and then from the occupational status of parents, we can see that half of the subject mother are work mainly as employees in a factory and or as self-employed, and a small number for father and mother are working as a civil servant. Educational level parents, we can see that more than of half of subject had mother and fathers with secondary level education. Although there were still parents who did not complete primary school. But only small parents have educational until college. And then from the table, we can see most of the subject have energy educate level in deficit intake 69.3%, and for protein adequacy level varies, but most subjects have a protein adequacy level in the more category, which is 39.5%. Feeding style for the element of feeding style, we know that demandingness element, the median is 56, and response element, the median is 18. We can see authoritative feeding style score of demand element is more and equal to 56, and the response element is more and equal to 18. Authoritarian, and then permissive, and neglect. For the feeding style practices by parents, almost parent practice with authoritative, and number 2 neglect, and permissive and authoritarian. Permissive and authoritarian. The practice of the feeding style and relation with energy adequacy level, we can see that that parents who practice neglect feeding style have a proportion of children with a greater energy deficit until 73.1%, and if compared with authoritarian, 66.7%, permissive 57.9%, and authoritative 47.1%. Based on the experiment ring before test, it shows that feeding style is not related to the level of energy adequacy, as indicated by a value less than 0.05, with the strength of the correlation included in the very weak category. But this number, it's almost close limit of the significant relation. Permissive child in permissive and permissive feeding style, the child can feel free. They can choose food they like. Some children that did not get breakfast due to various reasons, and parents give pocket money to buy some meal or snack at school, and usually they buy cilok, chiki, wafer, and powder drink, and packaged drink. And then the practices of feeding style and protein adequacy level, we can see that parents who practices permissive feeding style have a large proportion of child with a protein deficit adequacy, and that permissive, authoritarian, and authoritative. Parents who practice authoritarian feeding style have higher proportion children with good protein adequacy. That those who are ignore, neglect, and authoritative, and permissive. Based on the rank experiment bivariate, it showed that feeding style was not related to the level of protein adequacy, as indicated by a p-value, and with the strength of the correlation include the very weak category. But in we know that from the interview, we can see the authoritarian feeding style practices make high demands, but not accompanied by sufficient attention and warmth. This can make child feel depressed and confused. So the intake of protein can be deficit, can be adequate to, and can be for more. Authoritative feeding style we can see too, but this makes children food intakes are more more quality. Parents ask children opinion about the food they want. Children are involved in preparing food. Direct child to choose healthy food. The protein usually they consume of are plant-based foods like tahu and tempe, and from animals are eggs, catfish, chicken, sausage, nugget, and tempura. And only a few subjects they consume milk. There are still many children who consume sweetened condensed product because children like the taste of this product, and many parents think that sweetened condensed is milk. And conclusion is practices of permissive feeding style is related to adequacy energy and protein in deficit level. Practices of authoritative feeding style is related to the adequacy energy and adequate intake level and protein in more level. One of the efforts to eradicate stunting is to improve children's diet. Play an important role in improving the nutritional intake and eating patterns for their children. And last, education is needed for parents and grandmother as daily caregiver so that they apply the right feeding style to their children. This is my contact, and thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Puji. Your presentation time is 15 minutes. Again, the next presenter. I invite Mr. Alan Prahutama.
Yes, Miss, can you hear my voice?
Okay, it's your time.
Okay, thank you. I would like to share my screen. Have you seen my screen?
Okay, please.
Okay, thank you. First of all, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Miss Dwi, for the time for me to presentation my research about mapping analysis of tropical disease spread and its vector in East Nusa Tenggara. This is my theme of research. We are from such department, Diponegoro University, Semarang. First, introduction that health is very important in our society. As we know that in this pandemic era, for example, health is very precious things. And also in SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which one of program from United States that implemented by the country, every country, I think, to implement the SDGs. One of aim in SDGs is in health aspect, especially handling the number of AIDS and also reduce dengue disease, tuberculosis, malaria, and other tropical diseases, as we know. Indonesia is one of tropical country which has full of sunlight every year, and there are two seasons, wet and dry season in Indonesia. And also we know from the news that in 2020 in East Nusa Tenggara has position 2 for the number of dengue, which the first position is Lampung province, but for the mortality of dengue, the East Nusa Tenggara is first position. Based on the Bureau Statistic Indonesia, especially I get from East Nusa Tenggara, the disease consists of malaria, dengue, tuberculosis, and diarrhea. From the table, we know that for malaria and diarrhea, they had decreased for malaria from 21,000 decreased to 17,000. But for dengue and tuberculosis disease, it increased from 2017 until 2018. Tropical diseases are impacted many factors, such as climate, weather, humidity, temperature, and also environment. And some research, they use variable population density to identify the spread of tropical disease such as malaria and dengue. But I think that the environmental factor such as the education of people, clean and healthy behavior of household also has important role to reduce the tropical disease. As we know that mapping and clustering analysis is needed to analyze the spread of tropical disease, because with map and cluster, it can be fundamental of decision makers to make a program, especially for decrease of tropical disease. In such method, plot and cluster analysis is a method for analyzing variable which has related each other. Plot and clustering is plot and clustering are multivariate statistic analysis. And also some diseases like malaria and dengue are related to spread among area which have dependency between area. From one area to another area. Spatial analysis is analysis of variable which has dependency among the area. And then in this paper, we have objective of the research are mapping of tropical disease in the East Nusa Tenggara province, which its factor such as we use environment factor. That method that we use are plot and coming clustering, and then we continue with spatial identification using Moran index. Then for literature review, as I said before, that plot analysis and coming cluster are multivariate analysis, but they have different process. In p-plot analysis, we analyze we want to map or category the object based on the variable with the result is it has plot that divided into 4 quadrant, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, and quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. However, common cluster is clustering object based on variable that it use distance as to find the characteristic of the object based on the variable. In p-plot analysis, we construct the formula, the metric X, which consists of the variable for the column, and the for row is consists of the object, will be divided into 3 matrix, or we use singular value decomposition as U matrix, L matrix, and A matrix. Which this metric we use eigenvalue or eigenvector that will be plot into scatter plot and divided into 4 quadrants. Besides, for common cluster, it clustering object based on the similarity characteristic of variable. We use the distance especially using equidistant distance. The algorithm of common clusters as follows. First, we have to determine the value of K as the number of cluster. Then we have generate the centroid as initial randomly. And then we have to find the distance its object to its centroid with use Euclidean. But in not limitation, we use another distance like Manhattan distance. Clustering the object based on the centroid, and then we have determined the position of new centroid with count the mean from the data in the previous centroid. The process will be iterative until the new centroid has same value with previous centroid. Next, for Moran index. Moran index is one of spatial analysis, which spatial analysis is analysis of statistics that use space or area as the object. Moran index developed by correlation, especially percent correlation, with the formula as in the slide, and the value of Moran index between -1 until 1. And also, as well as correlation in the Moran index, we have to hypothesis testing. We have to testing the significant level of the Moran index, which zero hypothesis is spatial autocorrelation is not significant, and versus spatial autocorrelation is significant. The statistic test is using Z value. The criterion of testing is reject H0 for the Z value greater than Z table. And then methodology of research, the source of data from Bureau Statistic Central from East Nusa Tenggara in 2018. The data consists of object and variable. The object consists of 22 district or regions in East Nusa Tenggara, and the variable consists of tropical disease and factor. The limitation of tropical disease are the number of malaria, the number of dengue, the number of tuberculosis, and the number of diarrhea. Besides, the limitation of its factor are the percentage of poverty, the depth of poverty index, the development moment index, and the density of population. The step analysis, first we have to map the 22 districts in East Nusa Tenggara province based on tropical disease and its factor using p-plot analysis. And then we clustering to 22 districts in East Nusa Tenggara using Cummins cluster. And then we find the spatial autocorrelation in the tropical disease and its factor using Moran index. This is the result of the analysis for p-plot analysis. As I said before, for p-plot analysis, consists of 4 quadrant, quadrant 1, quadrant 2, 3, and 4. But in this result, quadrant 3 and 4, there is no description or result, because in the pivot analysis, the dot represent object or region, and then the line is represent a variable. For example, in quadrant 1, head Kupang, head Kupang CT, Manggarai have similarities with tropical DC, like diarrhea, tuberculosis, and pneumonia. It has similarity based on its factors such as human development index and population density. While Isumba, South Timor Tengah.
Excuse me, Mr. Alan, please hurry up.
Okay, thank you. And they were in quadrant 2, which has similarity based on malaria disease and poverty index and percentage of poverty. Then for common cluster, we cluster it into 3 clusters, which each cluster has characteristic of the variable. But before we clustering the object, we have to checking the multicollinearity of variable using VEF factor. Based on the result, poverty and depth of poverty has multicollinearity, so we have to eliminate one of variable. This is the characteristic of cluster 1, cluster 2, and cluster 3. For example, cluster 1, this is related to dengue, tuberculosis, and diarrhea, and development human index and population density. Besides cluster 2, the characteristic is malaria, tuberculosis, and others with a sign of the star in this table. But this is consists of a high and low. This is the result of the common cluster based on the variable. Next, we check the autocorrelation spatial. We use Moran index.
Sorry, Mr. Alan, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Can you speed up?
Okay, based on the Moran index, there are some significant variables such as malaria in 5%, such as malaria, poverty, and also population density. Okay, in the mapping analysis, use tropical DC variable X factor is in the plot, show that location in focus are Kupang, Manggarai, West Manggarai, Southwest Sumba, Isumba, South Timor Tengah, and Inde. Meanwhile, the location show representative cluster in lowest value of variables such as Alor, Flores, Kupang, Lembata, Malacca, and others. While the location represent high value of variables such as Inde, Southwest Sumba, and Sumba. For analysis the spatial autocorrelation, the significant variables such as malaria, dengue, tuberculosis, percentage poverty, and population density. That's all my presentation. Thank you so much. And further discussion, you can contact me into email. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Alan. Please read and answer the question for you in Zoom chat. Okay, next presenter, Rizka Amalia.
Yes, here I am replacing for Miss Rizka Amalia. Yes.
Okay.
All right, I will share my screen. So please host to accept the multiple share screen.
Okay.
All right. So first, I want to apologize because I can't apply my virtual background because my background is have same color with my skin tone, so it will cover my face. All right. Do you guys see my presentation in your screen?
Yeah, we can see your presentation.
All right. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Yusuf Arayudanto. I'm from Industrial Chemical Engineering of Vocational School Diponegoro University. In this section, I would like to present about our research titled Optimization of Process Parameter for Deaf Lavin Extraction from Black Tea Camellia sinensis as an inhibitor potential of RDRP SARS-CoV-2 using response surface methodology. Here is the team of the research. We have Rizka Amalia, Muhammad Edi Yulianto, Susiana Purwantisari, and me, Yusuf Aragudanto. In this presentation, we will discuss about introduction, materials and method, resultant discussion, and the last is conclusion. Acute respiratory disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus has spread throughout the world. One of the screening chemical structures that has the most potential as an active RDRP inhibitor in SARS-CoV-2 is theaflavin compound. Theaflavins can dope in the catalytic pouch near the active RDRP sites of SARS-CoV-2, SARS-CoV, and MERS-CoV and block their active sites. The use of organic solvents such as alcohol can extract nearly 100% of the theaflavin content in black tea, but creates difficulties in the downstream separation process. Water is one of the green solvents that can minimize the environmental impact due to solvents in chemical production. Extraction at high temperatures tends to reduce the concentration of the theaflavins if done for a long time. However, the main problem may be the thermal degradation of theaflavins to thioredoxins. So basically, this research aimed to optimize the process parameter for theaflavin extraction from black tea, Camellia sinensis, using response surface methodology. The effect of 3 process parameters, including temperature in the amount of 70 until 90 degrees Celsius, time in the amount of 5 until 25 minutes, and solvent to solid ratio in the amount of 30:1 until 50:1 on the extraction process of theaflavin from black tea were investigated. The equipment that we use for this research, the main equipment is hydrothermal extractor, and for analysis purpose, we have visible Genesis 20 spectrophotometer with wavelength in the amount of 318 nanometer. For the materials, we use black tea as a raw materials to extract theaflavin, distilled water as a solvent, nitrogen to flush the extractor, and also chemicals for analysis, including ethyl acetate pro-analysis and methanol pro-analysis with brand of Merck. For the methods, including 4 stages. The first is response surface optimization. This response design is carried out through the Statistica 8 program to determine dependent and independent variables. Dependent variables are solvent or water, and solute is black tea. For independent variables are extraction temperature, X1, extraction time, X2, and ratio of solvent to solid, X3. And for extraction of theaflavin, this process is carried out in an extractor with variation of ratio black tea and water, temperature and time based on response surface experimental design at a constant pressure of 1.8 kilogram per centimeter square. A certain volume of water is added to the extraction cell. After the cell is securely closed, nitrogen gas is then passed to purify the air. After the extraction process is complete, the extraction mixture is transferred to a cooling cell and samples were taken for analyzing the theaflavin content. The next is analysis of theaflavin content was carried out referring to the method from our references using a visible spectrophotometer with the equation is percent TF equal to 2.25 multiplied by E1, where E1 is the absorbance of solution A at wavelength of 318 nanometer after being standardized with a blank solution. The last is data analysis, which carried out by multiple analysis regression to get the optimal optimization model using Statistica 8. For the table 1, we show you the determination of independent variables and coded variables level. The independent variables including temperature in degrees Celsius, time in minutes, solvent to solid ratio in milliliter per gram. And the coded variables level, we have A, -1, 0, +1, and alpha, as you can see in the slide for the nominal. And for table 2, we show you response surface experimental design that including 16 run with various of temperature in degrees Celsius, various of time in minutes, and various of solvent to solid ratio in milliliter per gram. The next is result and discussion. In the left side, we show you the table 3 display the theaflavin content. Thermoflavin content obtained were ranging from 0.043 until 0.998 with extraction temperature at 70 until 90 degrees Celsius for 5 until 25 minutes and solvent to solid ratio in the amount of 30:1 until 50:1. Extraction of black tea at a temperature of 90 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes and solvent to solid ratio in the amount of 50:1 milliliter per gram resulted in the highest amount of therflavins, which is 0.998. The analysis of the optimization study designed using a central composite design displays that the correlation between the therflavin extracted and extraction process parameter is shown in equation 1, where Y is an extraction therflavin, X1 is temperature, X2 is time, and X3 is the solvent to solid ratio. The secondary regression model shows that the amount of therflavin extracted from black tea is affected by the interaction between extraction temperature, extraction time, and solvent to solid ratio, which is indicated on the positive constant on the model. And then table 4, we show you the value of effect estimates of the extraction process parameter, and figure 1 show you regression curve. As shown in table 4, the regression coefficient obtained, or R square, is 0.66. It can be interpreted that the regression equation can be represent 66% of the total variation of the model. The next is in the table 5, we show you ANOVA analysis, and figure 2, we show you Pareto chart of standardized effects. Based on the analysis of variance or ANOVA in table 5, the regression model has no significant influence on the extraction process, with the p-value is above than 0.05. Furthermore, the optimization process using the response surface methodology also produced the most influential process parameter. Pareto graph in figure 2 shows that temperature was the most influencing parameter to the extraction process. As we can see in the slide, that temperature have the most or the highest score for this Pareto chart is 2.0. The next, we show you 3 figures, including figure 3, it's plot contour profiles of time and solvent to solid ratio. Figure 4 is plot contour profiles of time and temperature, and figure 5, plot contour profiles of temperature and ratio. As can be seen from figure 3, the increasing solvent to solid ratio and time of the extraction could increase therflavin concentration, while figure 4 and 5 show that therflavin concentration increased at temperature above 80 degrees Celsius at various extraction time and solvent to solid ratio. Temperature and time of extraction play a key role in forming and degrading therflavin compounds in tea extract. It was reported that the longer the extraction time, the therflavins obtained decreased until the 20 minutes. The yields were relatively constant. This is because prolonging the extraction time expands the phase contact between therflavin and water as a continuous phase. This phase contact opportunity causes thermal degradation of therflavins to thermogabin. This is due to the thermolabile nature of therflavins, so that when the solvent penetrates them, the therflavins are thermally degraded into thermogabin and are then dragged and crossed into the continuous phase. So we can conclude for this research showed that the regression equation could represent 66% of the total variation of the model. The model indicated that the amount of therflavin extracted from black tea is affected by the interaction between extraction temperature, extraction time, and solvent to solid ratio. The temperature was the most influencing variable for the therflavin extraction from black tea or Camellia sinensis. The optimal condition for the extraction of therflavin from black tea was performed at a temperature in the amount of 90 degrees Celsius in 25 minutes with solvent to solid ratio in the amount of 50:1 milliliter per gram. So that's all from me. I hope it is clear enough to understand. If you have any question, just drop to the question box or just open your mic. Back to the chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. Your presentation time is 15 minutes, and please stay tuned and answer the question in Zoom chat. Thank you. Next presenter, Ali Humaydi. Yes, Ali Humaydi.
Ali Kumaini. Ya, saya Bu.
Alikumaini. Sorry. Please, it's your time.
Bentar. Sebentar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Rizky Wahyu Nadila from Department of Physics, Faculty of Science and Mathematics, Diponegoro University. On this occasion, I will present a paper entitled Effect of Laser Wavelength in the Elemental Analysis of Human Blood using Nd:YAG Laser-Induced Breakdown Spectroscopy. Human blood contain major, minor, and trace elements, including kalium, natrium, oxygen, hydrogen, and others, which should balance in composition each other. Analysis of elements in the human blood is very crucial for the diagnosis of disease in the human being. The deficiency or abundance of the elements in the human blood can cause infectious disease. Thus, periodical identification and analysis of elements in the human blood are urgently required. The standard technique for elemental analysis of liquid, including X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy and inductively coupled plasma atomic emission spectroscopy. But those techniques are very sensitive for elemental analysis with high precision. The techniques need serious sample preparation, and also they are high cost in instrumental system. Laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy has recently become a rising star as analytical technique for elemental analysis in various material samples, including solid, liquid, and gas. LIBS is still very few reports to be employed as an elemental analysis in human blood serum. In this technique, a pulsed laser of Nd:YAG is commonly used as an energy source for excitation and ionization of atoms from the material sample. Compared to other techniques, the LIBS enables one to perform rapid analysis of multi-elements with a quite good precision and sensitivity. The aim of our experiment to identify and analyze the elemental of human blood using Nd:YAG laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy method, or LIBS. And on this figure, experimental setup used in this present work. A pulse Nd:YAG laser was focused on a sample target using a quart lens with a focal length of 100 millimeters to induce a luminous plasma. The plasma emission was sent into the optical multi-channel analyzer using optical fiber to obtain an emission spectrum. The sample used were human blood serum from normal patients. For analysis, the sample was prepared by pouring serum liquid onto a chopper metal surface. Subsequently, the liquid sample was dried in the room temperature for 30 minutes to obtain liquid serum film. For data acquisition, the sample was placed inside a metal chamber with a diameter of 12 centimeters and height 10 centimeters. Inside the chamber was maintained with ambient air with a reduced pressure of 5 torr. The sample was rotated during laser bombardment with a rotation rate of 2 rotations per minute. And this is figure 2, emission spectra of elements obtained from the human blood using standard LIPS technique ranging from 200 nanometers to 350 nanometers using A, fundamental NDX laser, and B, third harmonic NDX laser. It can clearly be seen that the total emission intensity of spectrum is much higher for the case of third harmonic compared to the case of fundamental. On this spectrum has been identified at 330.2 nanometers, which belongs to neutral Na or sodium. The sodium is one of minor elements in human blood serum. Emission spectrum carbon clearly occurs at 247.8 nanometers. This carbon emission is acquired from the transition energy of 7.7 electron volt to 2.7 electron volt as shown in National Institute of Standard and Technology, or NIST. The carbon atom was one of light elements which is difficult to be identified and analyzed using LIPS. The other analytical lines at around 280 nanometers, which belong to ionic and neutral magnesium emission. However, it should also be noticed that the intensity is much higher for the case of third harmonic compared to the case of fundamental NDX laser. In this figure, emission spectra of elements ranging from 350 nanometers to 450 nanometers using fundamental NDX laser for A, B, third harmonic NDX laser. Very clear analytical lines occur at the 393.3 nanometers and 396.8 nanometers, which correspond to the ionic emission lines of calcium. These emission lines are obtained from the ionic transition energy level from 3.15 electron volt to ground state level of ionic transition. Some emission lines at 442 nanometers, 445 nanometers, 449 nanometers occur with quite high emission intensities, correspond to neutral calcium emission lines. This result certified that the human blood serum contains calcium with high concentration. On this figure 4, emission spectra of elements ranging from 500 nanometers to 700 nanometers clearly been seen that emission lines wavelength at 510.6 nanometers, 515.5 nanometers, 521.8 nanometers, 535.7 nanometers, 578.2 nanometers strongly occur correspond to chopper emission lines coming from the chopper metal subtarget. Emission lines detected at the 588.9 nanometers and 589.6 nanometers with very high intensities, which belongs to neutral natrium emission lines. At 656.3 nanometers correspond to the neutral hydrogen. It's known that the human blood serum is organic material which contains major elements of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. In this figure 5, emission spectra of elements obtained from the human blood using standard LIPS technique ranging from 700 nanometers to 850 nanometers using A, fundamental NDX laser, and B, third harmonic NDX laser. Emission lines clearly detected at 766.8 nanometers and 769.1 nanometer with high intensity. These lines are ionic Fa or ferrum obtained from the energy transition between 12.9 electron volt to 11.3 electron volt. We can see at 777.7 nanometer with high intensity, which corresponds to neutral oxygen. The oxygen is one of major elements that compose organic material, such as human blood serum. Almost all emission lines correspond to the elements in the human blood serum have higher emission intensity for the case of third harmonic NDF laser. Thus, for the case of the higher frequency of third harmonic NDF laser, the plasma absorption coefficient is much lower than the case of fundamental NDF laser. And therefore, part of laser beam for third harmonic impinging on the material target is much more higher than the case of fundamental, resulting in much higher material ablation, which indicate by higher emission intensity of elements as shown in figure 2 to 5. And the conclusion, the results certified that the use of third harmonic laser can result in higher emission intensity compared to the case of fundamental NDF laser. This phenomenon might be due to the effective mass ablation happen for the case of third harmonic NDF laser. Some elements, including major and minor elements, have been clearly identified from the human blood serum, including carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, magnesium, thallium, natrium, and ferrum. It's concluded that for identification and analysis of human blood serum using standard leads, a third harmonic NDF laser is much suitable to be employed compared to the case of fundamental NDF laser. So that's all my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Miss Rizky Wahyu Nabila. Please stay tuned and please read and answer question for you in Zoom chat. And then the last presenter is Miss Retno Dwi Nyamiati. Miss Retno Dwi Nyamiati, please. Halo.
Apakah sudah mendengar suara saya, Bu? Halo? Halo? Apakah terdengar suara saya?
Terdengar, Mbak, tapi agak putus-putus.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mrs. Dwi Sitiningsih, for the time you have given, and thank you for all participants and all presenter for your attention. Okay, I will introduce my team. This is Mr. Muhammad Endi Yulianto, Miss Vita Paramita, Miss Rizkia Amalia, and Miss Mawada and me, Retno Dunyamiati. We will come from Industrial Chemical Engineering Technology Vocational School, Diponegoro University. Okay, today I will discuss about the optimizing of gingerol extraction process through critical water. The background of the research, one of the medical plants in the form of ginger is known to have various pharmacological effects such as the number one of anti-inflammation, anti-cancer, antioxidant, anti-carcinogenic, and osteoporosis. The result of the ginger dehydration process produce bioactive such as gingerol, sogol, paradol, and zingerol. And the development of the 6-gingerol and sogol extraction process from ginger can be done through several separation techniques, including leaching process, micro extraction, and ultrasonic extraction. But this process not recommended because this process has the potential to leave toxic solvent reduce, long extraction time, large solvent requirement, low selectivity, and thermal degradation of bioactive compound. And then an alternative extraction process that is considered appropriate is the extraction process with the following criteria. This is number 1, using a non-toxic solvent, a solvent that is cheap, easy to obtain, has a high purity, can recycle and easy handling, has a polarity, and has a low viscosity. And this is the alternative in the research, the extraction with the hydrothermal process. The extraction process using water solvent under subcritical condition. Based on thermodynamically, water that is kept in liquid condition below its critical point in the temperature range of 100 until 30 and 75 degrees Celsius, with a pressure of less than 22 MPa is referred to subcritical water. Water in a subcritical condition has a low dielectric constant value of 27 at 250 degrees Celsius and 50 bar. So it has property polarity equivalent to organic solvent, has a low viscosity, and surface tension can increase diffusivity up to 10 times. Is able to reduce hydrogen bond in water. It is able to anchor mass transfer rate, absorption of particle in the metric, and high selectivity of the extraction process. Therefore, this study aims to determine the optimum process condition for the extraction of 6-gingerol from ginger using subcritical water. Okay, this is material in the research. Number 1, distilled water. Distilled water purchased from PT Baratem is used subcritical water extraction solvent. And number 2, fresh ginger obtained from the small and medium industry UD3 Dara Ungaran. And number 3 is nitrogen used to remove air and dissolve oxygen were obtained from PT Baratem Semarang. And this is a methodology for the independent variable and level for optimizing using response surface methodology. The extraction temperature was set at 120 until 150 degrees Celsius, and extraction time set at 10 until 30 minutes, and the feed solvent ratio is set at 5 to 1 until 15 to 1. Okay, this is methodology from the extraction. Number 1, fresh ginger is cleaned and off dirt and green to obtain a uniform powder size. And 700 milliliter of distilled water and varied at a certain ratio was added to the cell. And after the lid of the extraction cell is closed, nitrogen gas inflow to expel the air. The hydrothermal extraction process was carried at the temperature of 120 until 150 degrees Celsius and extraction time of 10 until 13 minutes at pressure of 2 bar. After the extraction process ends, the reaction mixture is transferred to a cooling cell and sample are taken for analysis of the gingerol content. Gingerol level were determined using a Shimatsu UV vis double beam spectrophotometer, and the absorbance was measured at a wavelength of 280 nanometer. And then this is a result. The table 2, optimizing data tabulation of the hydrothermal extraction process parameter of ginger from ginger. This is 16 run. The data obtained for experimental design using a central composite design were analyzed using Statistica 8. The experimental data tabulated in table 2. And the result of response surface methodology demonstrate a significant P less than 0.05 regression relationship between the independent variable and response variable, and high the content of 6 gingerol in is around 1. This is 5.81 milligram per gram. And the table 3, this is estimate effect on the hydrothermal extraction process of gingerol from ginger. The quality of the model built is evaluation based on the correlation coefficient R square. The R square obtained was 0.76 in table 3, and the R square value of 0.76 indicate that 76.9% of the total variation in hydrothermal extraction process gingerol from ginger is to give effect to process variables studied. The p-value of the parameter studied were less than 0.01. This indicates that the model is quite good at predicting hydrothermal extraction of ginger from ginger with the range of process variables studied. The conclusion of the model, the experimental data is shown to observe and predict value as it's displayed on the figure 1. And furthermore, figure 2 is illustrated to Pareto chart of the standardization effect. It shows that the temperature was the most influencing variable in this experiment. This is in figure 3, so contour plot of the RSM on the effect of temperature and solvent. Response surface plot indicate that optimizing condition extraction gave more 5% of the ginger concentration yield and preserved liquid extraction. And the figure 4 shows contour plot of the RSM on the effect of temperature and time gave more than 6% of the ginger. And the figure 5 plot of the RSM on the effect of time and the solvent, the optimum value of the liquid water extraction of gingerol was obtained by solving the second order polynomial regression. And the response surface plot indicate that optimizing condition extraction gave more than 6% of gingerol, and the optimal condition of the liquid water extraction of gingerol was the temperature 120 degrees Celsius and extraction time of 10 minutes. Okay, conclusion about this research. Number 1, the officinale to manage various disease conditions in spite of mentioning modern perspective of antiviral, radioprotective, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and antioxidant effect. And the application of subcritical water method is possible on the simultaneously converting of gingerol to sogaol and the extraction process of both gingerol and sogaol. The research showed that the model was adequate to predict the gingerol value in the range of the variables studied. The response surface contour plot of the RSM of the effect of solvent volume, time, and temperature on the gingerol concentration have solved the optimal condition for liquid water extraction of ginger was extraction performed at temperature of 110 degrees Celsius and mid-level of extraction temperature. Response report indicate that optimizing condition extraction gave more than 6% of the gingerol concentration yield in the liquid extraction. Okay, thank you. I think enough.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Rupno Dwi. Your presentation time is 15 minutes. Okay. I think all questions on Zoom chat have been answered. Are there any more questions? Okay, there is no question. Please give me permission to close this session.
There's one question.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for interesting presentation. Finally, I give the applause for you all. Thank you again. Thank you again. Finally, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sorry.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Can we take a picture?
Oh, sorry, Mbak.
Okay.
Okay.
Please, everyone, open your camera. I will take a picture of us. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Once again. 1. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think enough. Monggo Bu Dwi.
Okay, I think leave me. Miss, give me permission. I leave. Thank you very much, Mbak.
Okay, thank you everyone.